All right, welcome back to episode number 3 of How I'm Thinking About It. And it's been a while. It's been a while since I've recorded uh, episode 2. And in that time, there has been a lot of major updates, and that is in relation to the strategy and the direction of this show. So, pretty much the summary is that I'm going to be focusing one episode um, yeah, for one idea, right? So I'm going to be spending each episode on a certain topic or a certain idea, and therefore, essentially, what's going to happen is we're going to be doing a lot more deep dives. So essentially, because we're very raw at this, I'm very new, and these episodes are probably going to be my worst episodes. I'm just going to be a little bit more, um, a little bit more free flowing in how I approach things. But eventually, what I want to do is I want to be a little bit more structured and a little bit more prepared in terms of my research in future episodes. And by the way, I've changed the setup a little bit as well. The setup has changed now. I don't think the previous setup was something that I liked or I did a pretty good job at. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be spending a lot more time in this position here, where it's a little bit more closer and also mimics what people do nowadays, right? Nowadays, the best form of content is streaming content, right? Or where the person who's creating the video is literally talking to each and every single one of you. So, without further ado, today's episode is going to be about capturing, and that's the idea of capturing ideas. And I have some notes here, so bear with me as I look down from time to time. So, essentially, what is capturing? And capturing is something that I have discovered to be something that has been very useful for me. And I have noticed that while capturing was something I saw beforehand, it wasn't something that I realized was excellent. And so essentially capturing is it's something that, it gives you a place to put a useful thought. It gives you a place to put a useful thought. So the definition of capturing is giving a useful thought or a useful idea a place or somewhere to survive until you can ultimately return back to it. And so, what ends up happening for many people is they have so many useful thoughts. In my case, I have had many thoughts over the years and many ideas over the years. And a lot of the times, those ideas weren't ready for me to use them. And what I foolishly did was I didn't put them somewhere. I just let them stay in my head. And in a few moments, in a couple hours or a couple days or even a couple years, certainly in a couple years, those ideas ended up getting lost. And so what ends up happening is you end up losing what I like to call, your gold, your treasure, like what makes you unique, what gives you value, your oil, essentially, because you didn't write it down somewhere. And human beings are very good at coming up with ideas. We often hear this. They're good at coming up with ideas, but they're not good at writing ideas. And so most people think that capturing means, taking lots of notes, having, high level, productivity system where you have different documents, different tabs, you have, a little filing system. That's what I used to think, right? That's what I used to think. But that isn't what capturing is. It's much, narrower than that. It's much more simpler. It's essentially to catch your thoughts quickly, ASAP. The moment something comes into your mind, you write it down. And ultimately, you write it down not for it to be perfect in that moment, but for you to come back to it later. And so, an example for me is right now with content creation. If you look at my social media right now, whenever I come up with a new strategy for my social media or my personal brand or the content I'm creating, I just create a little graphic and I post it because I like to document it and come back to it later. And another thing that I've noticed is when I write things down, when I write it down, I can think, like I have like more, I have more real estate in my mind, like I have more space to think through that idea. Because if it's just stuck in my head, it just sits there and I'm unable to think through it, and I just sit with all of these ideas. So essentially, you we talked about like what capturing is, and it's so essentially now this is the section where I get into what capturing is. So capturing, we talked about, it's about taking a useful thought, a useful task, right? A question, an observation, a strategy that you came up with, a business idea, for example, and it's in your head, and you put it down into writing. Or what I like to do sometimes is record it, right? Record it, and you put it in a trusted place that you can always come back to and always access. And so capturing is you're transferring. So that's the idea of capturing. You're transferring, right? You're transferring what's in your head into a safe place, and you capture all your ideas and you hoard them, essentially, like you're hoarding cash, right? And a lot of the times, what you'll notice, especially in the beginning, it just feels very weird because it's your first version. You don't end up doing a good job with it because you're not doing a good job with it. What ends up happening is it's going to be very weird, and you're gonna want to put every single thing that comes up in your mind onto the wherever you're saving, whether it's a Google Drive, whether it's Notion, whatever, right? But the key is to always focus on making sure that it's manageable for you to go back to it and understand it. Like, it just has to be good enough for you to be able to understand it. It's not about being perfect. So, and by the way, capturing is not organizing, right? You're not organizing your ideas in that moment, and don't worry about organizing. Capturing, I know a lot of people, if you go on YouTube and whatnot, they're all like, okay, organize it, have this essentially like big system and whatnot. No, your objective is to capture and not organize. You can always go back and find whatever it is that you can find. You can use a search feature and you can search up whatever it is you're looking for, right? But you're not there to organize. That gets away from the essence of capturing. And basically, this leads us to the next section, which is, what problem does capturing solve? What problem does capturing solve? Because why are you going to do this if you're not going to solve for something, right? And it solves what I like to call a bandwidth problem, right? It saves bandwidth up here. If you have all these ideas and they just sit there, you're essentially clogging up your brain. And that's number one. That's essentially the key. But if you go back to the beginning of the episode, it's also solving what I like to call a timing problem, or a forgetfulness problem, right? Because you're going to forget everything. So essentially, everything comes back to one thing. Your brain can only handle so much. Right? So you're taking the brain, which is only good for thinking and coming up with ideas. Sometimes it's good for memory, absolutely. But you get it and you write it down. So without capturing, right, you're just going to spend so much energy, because you're going to be thinking about, what about this? What about that? What about, you're going to be thinking about, all these different ideas and all these different concepts. But the important thing is you need to start focusing on capturing. So you shouldn't be thinking about reminders, certainly. Like, if you want to remind yourself of something to do, don't think about it, write it. You shouldn't be keeping your ideas up here. You're supposed to be writing it and putting it down somewhere. So, and the value, by the way, the value isn't about saying I have 10,000 notes and I have this great system of captured notes. No, it's about how useful it is for you, right? So it's not a numbers game. It's not a competition. It's just about having whatever it is that you're thinking about and putting it somewhere. So I'll give you an example. You have two social media creators, right? You have two content creators. So one thinks about their memory. One or they don't think about their memory, but they make sure, they make it so that their memory does everything for them. And the other one writes, things down, right? They have notes. They may be one sentence, 3 words, a long story, a long audio note. Which one do you think is going to do a better job in terms of being more productive? The one that writes things down, because it gives them a place. That capturing gives them a place for all their ideas to sit, so that way they can start focusing on actually, doing, more productive things, and also they can trust that their notes and their thoughts are somewhere they can always go back to, so they're not worried about losing everything. But if you're always constantly worried about keeping things up here, you're going to always be stressing about remembering this, remembering that. And what ends up happening is you're going to be spending more time on maintaining this memory than actually doing cool things. So once people, I feel like, understand that, right? That concept, truly, like I did, their life, genuinely changes. But then there's another subset of people who completely understand it in the wrong way. And so, which leads me to the question, what is the most common mistake when it comes to capturing? The most common mistake I've seen is like we talked about in the beginning of the video, right? Is they confuse capturing with organizing. They confuse capturing with organizing. And so they make this whole complicated system like we talked about with regards to capturing. They want to have this polished, pristine system, so that they feel nice and special and protected and safe, that nothing can get lost. I can always find my insights and ideas, and I have like this map and ideas connecting, and I have this LLM model that connects to it. Now, in the beginning, cool, that stuff's cool, by the way, you can always do that, but the key is the essence of capturing, which is to capture the idea immediately. So, by the way, here's a pro tip. Every added decision, I wrote this down, every added decision creates friction, and that makes capturing more difficult to do. So the concept of capturing is to eliminate friction, is to eliminate, decision making, and to eliminate you thinking about whatever it is that you are thinking of in that moment. The goal of capturing is to essentially save you time and to save you brain power. Right? If it's meant to make you feel, more egotistical, to feel bigger than you actually are, that's not the whole point of capturing. So another one I've noticed is another issue, that I have noticed is a lot of the times people don't go back and review the stuff that they've captured. Sometimes they just capture, and they just throw it away. That's another extreme. Sometimes it's nice to go back and reread what you captured, because you're so caught up in whatever your life, you forgot about what you reviewed. And sometimes it's nice to go back and to remember what you were thinking of in that moment. Maybe it can spark something that you may have otherwise lost or wanted to do, and you didn't. So the key is, again, separate the two, which is separating capturing and to separate organizing. So here comes the unique part of the show, which is how am I, or how is Mukhtar thinking about it, or how am I thinking about it? This is the unique, my featured section. So what changed in my own thinking? So the key moment for me where I changed from being someone who wasn't capturing ideas to someone who was capturing ideas was I stopped treating my memory, right, as the system, as the be-all and end-all. And I started treating capturing as respecting my brain, as respecting my ideas, as respecting myself. Capturing wasn't just another productivity thing. It was about respecting myself and respecting the limitations that I have, and giving myself help, and giving myself relief, and giving myself a boost. So, and by the way, I think this is the case with many of you. A lot of your ideas come from when you're just walking, you're talking, or you're essentially just doing something that is completely separate from what comes into your head. That's what I'm talking about. You can't keep that in your mind and not go crazy. You have to write that down somewhere. right? So you can enjoy whatever it is that you're doing, but also not lose out on what you have in your head, that thought that you have. And by the way, a small little idea that you captured that might be like 5 seconds, like one line, 7 or 8 words, that can become the beginning of something. By the way, this whole content creation thing that I'm doing just came from some capture notes that I was doing, where I was like, okay, I want to do social media. What's my social media? What am I thinking about? All these things have led to this whole ecosystem, right? I want to talk about things I like. I want to think through things. I want to share. I eventually want to create, products and services where I can help people think through certain ideas. I like talking about things, that come up that I see every day. And so all of that stuff essentially became what this is today. So never underestimate capturing. And by the way, you do not need to decide or filter out what you think about. What do I mean by that? I mean that you don't have to think, okay, should I write this down because it's stupid? It's great, or maybe I shouldn't write this down because it's stupid. No, you just write it down. And if you're going to leave with one thing today, it's this, and let this be a principle: catch it fast and then judge it later. So catch it fast. Don't worry about you're not here to triage everything in the moment. You treat everything as if it's almost like, I don't want to say an emergency, but that it's a potential groundbreaking idea. You treat every concept like that, and then after that, you judge it later. Which leads me to my next section, which is maybe I'm seeing if some of the examples that I have are actually going to be of benefit, or maybe if we should skip them because we've already talked about it. Let's talk about some everyday examples of capturing. Personal, like we talked about already, you're walking to the grocery store, and then some great wonderful idea of an invention that you have pops up in your mind. You're like, hey, I'm walking down the street, I'm noticing lots of people don't have bags, and bags cost money at the grocery store. Why don't I have a little side business where in the back of my car I sell people bags for like 50 cents cheaper than what the grocery store sells it for, and they're reusable bags. But I have to do it in a way where it should already be set up in my car. It's just really weird idea. Just write it down. Write it down. Don't worry about it. Newsroom is another cool, unique example of capturing, but we don't think about it as capturing. A lot of the times, in newsrooms or in police stations, for example, they have a tip line, right? They capture everything. People call them, they tell them, hey, this suspect here, this situation is happening. Oh my God, there's a situation happening. A lot of the times it's just fluff, it's just nonsense, right? But they treat every single one as if it's important or groundbreaking, or some groundbreaking news story, or some groundbreaking breakthrough in a case. So, but what do? They capture it in the moment, right? They capture it quickly, and then they judge it later. Later on, they verify it. They make sure they either develop that news story, or they outright reject it, right? And so the key is capturing is all around us if you focus on it. Every day, we see this when you go to the grocery store. Same example, when you go to the grocery store, you have a list. A lot of the times people just have lists. You just capture because you can't keep it in mind. So people don't necessarily think capturing is something, meaningful because you're using it for something so small. No, you use it for every single aspect. It's something that is universal. Here's another idea. Screenshots. People take screenshots all the time. That's a form of capturing, right? So we do capturing sometimes without knowing and knowing, but it has so many benefits. So how can you apply capturing? So essentially, the question is, what can someone actually do to apply capturing? And it's very simple. I have a very basic system. Capture, save. Capture and save. That's it. Capture and save. And there's different ways of capturing. Either you write, you take a picture, audio, you use the audio, you do the audio thing. But essentially, you just capture and you save it. You save it in just one place. Or sometimes you can have 5 different places. It doesn't really matter. Just capture. Don't worry about where you're saving it. As long as it's saved, whether it be in a Notes app, right? A lot of times I use the basic Notes app in the phone, the Samsung Notes or Apple Notes. Sometimes I use audio. I do voice recordings, and then later on I transcribe them. But just save them. Don't worry about where you save them. Just save them. You'll find a way to get them eventually, but just save them. So catch them, right? And then basically return back to it. That's it. There's nothing too crazy about capturing. It's just about capturing and saving. It's self-explanatory. And so, like we talked about, what deserves to be captured and what doesn't deserve to be captured, don't worry about it. Don't ever worry about what deserves to be captured and what doesn't deserve to be captured. But if I do have one thing, it is not to go too extreme sometimes. Sometimes you'll have people who want to capture every single thing that goes on in their lives. If you're going to do that, then become an what is it called? IRL stream or whatever. No. Like, ultimately, just record yourself, right? Just, if you're going to want to record every single aspect of your life, but if you just want to capture ideas, then moments in your day, just spend 5 minutes, 6 minutes, just capturing different things that came into your mind, right? So just have moments throughout your day where you dedicate 2 or 3 moments in the day where you dedicate capturing. And then in between that, if an idea really resonates with you and you really care about it, then capture it, right? But don't think about, don't get too extreme in one way, which is, I don't need to capture everything, right? And the other extreme, which is, I need to capture every single aspect of my life. No, you have to have a middle ground, otherwise you're going to burn out with that other extreme. Sometimes, the cool part of capturing, which is, by the way, after you capture a lot and you review, right? We talked about reviewing just a little bit. Once you review, you'll find that a lot of these ideas are, linked, right? They all come under the same theme. Then you can start adding stuff together. And the fun part is when you start adding things together, you start to delete them. And that's the fun part. It's easier to delete things, right, than to make things, right? So you've done all the hard work, but you go back and you start deleting things. And then once you delete them, you get rid of all of that fat. Then after that, you can start adding and you can start building on it. And that's when the fruits of capturing start to come out. So I think that's going to be the end of this episode. It's a new system and a new style. So hopefully this is probably going to be the vibe for the next, I'm guessing, 100 episodes until I find a system that I like or something that resonates with all of you, which is, we're going to be experimenting, trying different things. Probably the next few episodes things might change, but if there's one thing that is for certain at this moment, is that I'm going to be focusing on the next 2 episodes, on how I consume the news, right? How I consume current events. And then the other episode is going to be, I believe, about constraints. So constraints, identifying constraints in your life from a productivity perspective, and whether it be constraints in business, whether it be constraints in your personal life, whether it be constraints in content creation, which is what I'm doing right now, and how you should approach constraints to make you more productive and to also get better at what you're doing. So without further ado, this is going to be the end of this episode. If you like this episode, like it, share it with whoever you think is going to benefit from this. Subscribe or follow wherever you are currently watching this, and I hope